amazing to be with all these local change makers from around the country in person. This is their first attempt at a hybrid National Bike Summit. If you were to come to DC right now, you'd see a ton more protected bike lanes, some really interesting intersection treatments, some new bridges. Obviously the bike share system is fantastic.
Washington, D.C. is one of the most bike-friendly cities in the United States, and it's my pleasure to show guests around, to share the beautiful sights and history of Washington, D.C. And my job has gotten so much easier the last couple of years. DC has really upped their game. They definitely took advantage of the pandemic.
Whether it's some of the new bike lanes like down in Southeast by the waterfront, or by the wharf, or by the Capitol and the White House, or out in the community, out in the neighborhoods, on a warm day on my street, you'll see during rush hour more bikes than cars.
We have, I think, some of the first protected bike lanes in the middle of the road, which Pennsylvania Avenue piloted, but we have a big crosstown sort of bike highway that goes across on Irving Street from northeast into northwest. Virginia Avenue just added beautiful new centerline bike lanes that have a couple underpasses where they took an entire car lane each direction. And then of course we have our brand new Frederick Douglass Bridge, which just opened this past September.
I use my bike more now than I ever have. I used to take Metro more, and I think when the pandemic happened, for a lot of people, they stopped using transit as much, which is sad. But bike use has gone up. You're independent, you're free, it's great exercise, we have better infrastructure now. And so I think that micromobility and cycling, electric bikes have just exploded.
So here in DC, you'll find a lot of contraflow lanes for bicyclists, more than just about any other place except maybe Portland, Oregon that I've been. But here's something I think I've never seen in almost any city, at least that I remember. It's the intersection of two contraflow lanes. So in each one of these intersecting streets, you can either ride in the one-way lane with cars, or you can go against traffic in the bike lane. So in a certain sense, it's kind of like a bicycle boulevard situation going on here. And this obviously keeps a lot of through traffic out of the neighborhood. Another thing that's really remarkable that you'll see here in DC a lot is there is daylighting at the corner of just about every intersection. So that might just be painted lines keeping people from parking, or it might be storage for bicycles and scooters or planters. So in this area, they really have done a really good job of that.
I'm here with FIONNUALA QUINN, who is the godmother of children's bike safety on a whole new level.
It's great to have you here today in the Thomas Elementary Traffic Garden. We involved hundreds of kids, the teachers, the PE teachers, the parents, the families in the planning and design process. They're designed to work with the second grade biking program, which is in all of the schools, in the elementary schools in DC. We have four-way stop intersections, we have roundabouts, we have streets that have sidewalks along them, we have a lot of crosswalks, we have a full set of portable signs that come out of the shed, and when children are learning, they practice and practice at those intersections. When you're a kid, everyone says, oh, this is a stop sign, you gotta stop. But when do you go? How do you know when to go? So that's what they're practicing.
For having traffic gardens and any kind of roadway markings be really successful, getting to engage a professional stripers in the layout and the application will help with both the efficacy and usefulness of the design itself as well as the longevity.
This traffic garden presentation workshop was actually great. I came from Tucson, Arizona. This is worth it for the trip for this.
Oh yeah, you can never remove the kid once you're on a bike, you know?
There have been many adults that have ridden on this and other traffic gardens because, you know, biking brings joy. Adults almost automatically either respond to them or they start engaging with the kids. They start sort of acting out the pedestrian crossing. You know, the concept of safety for children in the US really only sprang into being 100 years ago, because before that they were able to use the streets. A lady in Ohio wrote this book of stories, and it's this book, Safety Town Stories, that inspired the patrolman in Ohio to build the first safety town. Anytime a school is being modernized, they install a traffic garden as part of the rehabilitation of the school. I think they're up to 5 or 6.
So for any of you that watch Street Films or know me, know that I'm a bit of a bridge nerd when it comes to bike and pedestrian paths over beautiful bridges. So when I knew I was coming to the bike summit here in Washington, D.C., I knew I had to visit the Frederick Douglass Bridge.
Of course, we have our brand new Frederick Douglass Bridge, which just opened this past September, and that has beautiful 20-foot wide bike and pedestrian paths on each side of the bridge.
You know, I think it's a bridge for the next generation, not for the past. You know, I think there's been this realization that you can only carry so many cars into DC, and we need to have other options.
To have something that's that wide to really encourage biking, really encourage people say, yes, you can get across the river and be a pedestrian and be on a bike and still feel safe, that I feel like that opens up a lot of transportation.
I have a cargo bike I custom built to get over the old Frederick Douglass Bridge, which had about a 5-foot wide sidewalk, and then it got narrower to about 3.5. So I had a cargo bike that I had 3 inches of either side on my box to be able to squeeze through.
Both sides, it boasts 20-foot wide paths for pedestrian bicyclists. That's right, both sides. The southbound side, which I'm standing on now, and the northbound side, which still is not open yet. They're still working a lot on the trail and the bridge, the approaches, the greenery, the paths. Even the viewing platforms are not open yet.
But once that thing is fully connected on both sides, it is going to be an easy on-off dream. Plenty of room for people who are watching, spectating, taking pictures, biking and running, you know, strollers, everything.
So I'm going to take a seat here in the pathway just to talk a little more. I've seen a lot of really cool bridge paths. The Tillicum Bridge in Portland, which carries no car traffic, only transit, cyclists, and pedestrians, has 14 footpaths on either side of the bridge. So that was pretty remarkable when I first saw that. In New York City, we opened the Kosciuszko Bridge recently. That has one 20-foot wide bike and pedestrian path on one side. Another great bridge I rode over that I really love is the Nijmegen Rail Bridge that has an attached bike and pedestrian path as well. I'm not sure how wide that is.
I've seen it from a lot of different angles, and being able to have it add to the beauty of all of the historical buildings of DC, all of the amazing architecture, it blends in and it also stands out.
Yes, it's beautiful, but it's also sort of this great equalizer. It's trying to stitch back together the communities east of the river and on this side of the river, on the west side. And I think not everybody's going to have a car or can afford one, and so giving everybody the opportunity to flow back and forth freely for little to no cost, either on Capital Bike Share Bike or on their own feet, it's walking the walk, not just talking the talk. You know, and that's what that bridge represents to me. I've been at this for a long time, and I think what happens is generationally things shift and success begets success. People have seen what they want, they've experienced it firsthand because of a lot of hard work. People like yourself, DOT chiefs, to finally, you know, experiment and show people what life can be like on the streets. We've had some high profile deaths, unfortunately, young children getting hit by cars in their neighborhoods on streets like this. And I think now the priority is safety. And actually in the new budget, they're gonna, I think, like triple the number of cameras out there for speed enforcement, stop sign enforcement. You know, you can't just do one thing. You have to make things beautiful and safer in a tactical way, but you have to like systematically change the way people use the streets. And without enforcement, you know, nothing really happens. You know, you have to have a carrot, like beautiful stuff like this, but you gotta have a stick. And so I think one thing DC has done very well is a carrot and a stick.
average lifespan for a Japanese cherry tree is about 50 or 60 years. We're gonna go explore Washington's cherry trees, the cherry blossoms. They're at peak right now. It is absolutely gorgeous. We have like 13 varieties of cherry trees. One understanding I have is that the very first cherry trees were actually near where that couple were getting their photos. It's also possible it's here, but it was on the banks of the tidal basin here, which was still quite new. And so the first cherry trees planted here in 1912.
The cherry blossoms in bloom all along the tidal area was just totally wonderful.
It was beautiful watching the sunrise over the Capitol.
You know, it just made me feel good being alive, being here in the Capitol, seeing all the buildings, the gorgeous trees. It was just spectacular.
Thank you all very much. Really appreciate you all coming out today. Cheers. Look at Clarence.